Hey, I'm Ryan Reynolds. At Mint Mobile, we like to do the opposite of what Big Wireless does. They charge you a lot, we charge you a little. So naturally, when they announced they'd be raising their prices due to inflation, we decided to deflate our prices due to not hating you. That's right. We're cutting the price of Mint Unlimited from $30 a month to just $15 a month. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
Hi, this is Jonathan Fields, host of The Good Life Project, where each week I talk to listeners about investing in their future by increasing their own vitality. But when it comes to those financial goals, whether it be saving for a home renovation, growing your child's college fund, or travel, life can make it difficult to stay the course. By working with a dedicated Merrill advisor, you get a personalized plan and a clear path forward. Having the bullet at your back helps your whole financial life move with you. So when your plans change, Merrill's with you every step of the way. Go to ml.com/bullish to learn more. Merrill, a Bank of America company. What would you like the power to do? Investing involves risk. Merrill Lynch, Pierce, Fenner & Smith Incorporated, registered broker-dealer, registered investment advisor, member SIPC.
Millions of people have lost weight with personalized plans from Noom. Like Evan, who can't stand salads and still lost 50 pounds.
Salads generally for most people are the easy button, right? For me, that wasn't an option. I never really was a salad guy. That's just not who I am. But Noom worked for me.
Get your personalized plan today at Noom.com. Real Noom user compensated to provide their story. In 4 weeks, the typical Noom user can expect to lose 1 to 2 pounds per week. Individual results may vary.
Super real.
Hey, I'm Julian Morgans, and you're listening to What It Was Like, the show that asks people who have lived through big, dramatic events what it was like. So next week is the 27th anniversary of Princess Diana's death. She died on August 31st, 1997. And as it's been pointed out many times before, Diana's death is one of those events where everyone remembers where they were when they found out. For me, I was 10, and my grandfather, he'd just had a stroke, and I remember the whole family, we were by his side in the hospital, and a news segment came up on the TV. You know, it was one of those TVs suspended by the roof, little cube, and it was all about Diana. And I remember my mum, She was really upset, you know, she was really affected. Even though her own dad was laying in a hospital bed, Mum still somehow found the bandwidth to get upset about Diana. And I remember thinking, wow, that's weird. And then I remember over the next few days, just the photos of that ocean of flowers laid outside the gates of Buckingham Palace. And all the radio stations playing the same song. They're all playing Candle in the Wind by Elton John. And I remember everyone started using the word paparazzi, which I'd never heard before. And I think it's through that it occurred to me that I've never heard the paparazzi side of the story. Their story's been kind of buried. And I think that's because, you know, they were blamed. They were blamed for chasing Diana into the tunnel, and I wasn't even sure if that was true. So that's what we're doing today. I'm speaking with a French celebrity photographer named Pierre Suu. And he was part of the paparazzi group who were photographing Diana on the night she died. And I'm aware this was 27 years ago, like I said. So here's a quick recap on what was going down at that time. So in 1997, Princess Diana, she'd been separated from Charles for about 5 years. And she was dating this new guy, this guy named Dodi El Fayed, who was the son of an Egyptian billionaire. And the two of them, they'd spent the night getting dinner at the Ritz in Paris, and then they'd left to go to Dodi's apartment. And they got into the car with a man named Henry Paul, who was the driver. And an autopsy would later find that Henry Paul was actually 3 times over the French legal limit for drink driving. Anyway, the car was pursued by a group of paparazzi on motorbikes, and then it struck a pillar at high speed inside the tunnel. And 3 of the 4 passengers were killed. The only survivor was the bodyguard, Trevor Rees-Jones. An interesting side note, actually, he now works as the head of security for AstraZeneca. Anyway, that night, Pierre Suu, the photographer, he unintentionally became part of history. That night changed his life, and the lives of his colleagues. As you'll hear today, so many of his paparazzi friends, they quit the business after this, or they suffered mental health issues. And I think that little detail kind of comes as a surprise. We do think we know this story. You know, the paparazzi, they were the bad guys. But hearing how deeply Pierre and his friends were affected, it kind of highlights the messy human side to history. You know, this wasn't just something that happened on TV. There weren't just guilty people and innocent people as there are in TV shows and movies, which means that the details of that night are far more complicated than I think most of us would imagine. So, to illustrate that point, I bring you Pierre Suu. Hello, Pierre. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
How did you get into photography?
I got into photography at the age of 19. I was kind of a high school dropout, so I resigned from the school. Then I wondered what to do. And fortunately, I had a family connection into photography. Mr. Sipayoglu, Gökçin Sipayoglu, who was the founder, owner of Sipa Press Agency, which was one of the 3 biggest photo agency in the world at the time. And after a while, to make a long story short, Mr. Sipayoglu Gökçin, he was giving a chance to all the younger guys, the younger people in the company. He gave me a chance. One day out of the blue, he said, "You're going to assist that guy, that photographer." And I became an assistant to then and now famous photographer. And we traveled the country for 1 year, and it started like that. And after a year with this guy, I was practicing photography, on the side. And I was covering all the little jobs that the other photographers wouldn't, like stupid demonstrations and boring political meetings and whatever, And then I moved to America, to Los Angeles. So basically, after 2 years from moving boxes, to putting stickers on contact sheet, I ended up covering the Academy Awards and spending the day with superstars shooting photos. Antonio Banderas, I remember when he just arrived, or Jean-Claude Van Damme, or all these guys. So yeah, that's how it began, really.
Yeah. Okay, so it sounds like in some ways you fell into photography, and then you ended up going to Los Angeles, where I'm assuming that taking photos of celebrities, that was really your bread and butter. Do you want to tell me about that experience?
Basically, I was like 22 years old, and the first photos I took was from Sly Stallone. Yeah. So to me, imagine, I liked that job, this is great. On my first day, I get to photograph Sylvester Stallone. So we had the best life during the day working and the best life after dark. So, and we were in our 20s. So it was, I couldn't hope for more.
Oh, Pierre, I'm jealous. It sounds like a real party.
It was.
So to my way of thinking, there is a bit of a difference between a celebrity photographer and paparazzi. Paparazzi to me is a word that has a grubbiness about it. It's about climbing fences and, pursuing people on motorbikes.
Yes. Well, there are 2 meanings, really. There is the American paparazzi is a celebrity photographer on the red carpet. Okay. This is the generic term that they use, yeah? In Europe, it's different. A paparazzi is somebody with a long lens that take photos that is not allowed to, it's not supposed to. And then the best case scenario, the people who are photographed don't see him, and he gets away with that, and they only realize they've been photographed when they read the newspaper. But the way we used it in France is with big telephoto, hiding, stalking mode. This were what we call a paparazzi, and this is what I did for 20 years.
Okay, so how did you get brought into the paparazzi fold?
By it was a complete chance, really, because I had to leave Los Angeles and come back to Europe. And I bumped into a friend of mine whom I used to work with in Los Angeles. It was a French paparazzi who used to come to LA for a couple of weeks and take photos of whoever. And we bumped into one another on the street, and he said to me, "Oh my God, what are you doing here?" And I explained the situation, and he told me, "Well, I've got a little photo agency. You're more than welcome to join if you're looking for a job," and which I did. But his specialty was really hardcore pop. That's all they did, these guys. So that's what I did. And
did you have any hesitation to get involved in that kind of business?
No, absolutely not, because I knew all about the business before that. I had experience already, probably the worst for me prior to that in Los Angeles. I had the worst case ever in LA. I was assigned to cover the story of Paul Michael Glaser, Starsky, Starsky and Hutch. And Paul Michael Glaser has the most unfortunate story ever. What happened to him was absolutely the worst nightmare. His wife, while giving birth, had a blood transplant and was transplanted bad blood, infected with AIDS, the AIDS virus. So she became infected, and she delivered a baby who became infected, and they didn't know. Yeah.
Oh my God.
So both the wife and the kid were infected, and they didn't know nothing. And then they had another kid who was infected because they didn't run any test or anything. So his two child and his wife were infected. After a while, they find out. So little girl died. And of course, guess what? Because of the show Starsky and Hutch, all the press wants the story, yeah? So I was assigned to do the story. And I used to follow him every day, and he used to go to this, blood center or whatever, all day. And one day, I'm sitting in front of his house in my car, and the little kid is playing on the lawn, and there was no fence, no nothing. And the little kid was playing, and I took photos. And he saw me from the window from the house. Paul Michael Glaser saw me. So he rushed down out of the house. He came to me. And I could have left, easily. And I for some reason in my mind, I said, well, you deserve what's going to happen. So, let's go. And I stayed in my car. And I lowered my window, and I had this big old Cadillac, and the hood of the Cadillac was weighing, I don't know, maybe 100 pounds. It was really thick steel, And I remember he arrived, and with his fist, he punched, the hood of my car to the point where he made a dent into it, yeah? And then he came around, and he called me all sorts of names, and I was listening. In my mind, I was like, yeah, well, you deserve that. But I was even ready to get a punch in the face, yeah? Which he didn't do for some reason. I don't know why, but I was ready. And then he took photos on my plate, and no problem, and I didn't even apologize. What can you do? What can you say? You're just the asshole, yeah? And guess what? When I came back home, and when I sent all the photos that I did during the whole week, the papers went crazy. They published these photos. I had a 10-page spread in Paris Match, and the agency were calling me, were congratulating me, calling me, oh my God, you did so well on the Starsky story, blah blah. And then I remember very well on the phone, I said, well, listen to me, you guys. This is the first and the last time that I will ever do a story like that again. I will never do it again, especially with involving children, because it's horrible. This is the worst. And I said, I'm never going to photograph, sick people again, ever. That's it. So yeah, so I had the experience prior, to join this agency in Paris. So So I knew about the business.
Can we just unpack that for just a moment? So I'm not a judgmental guy, and I'm certainly not on this show to judge. But I am curious. What was the justification in your mind? You know, like when you were assigned these kind of awful tasks, were you like, well, it's the price of fame and they live in beautiful mansions and, you know, that's like, what was the justification that you came up with?
No, you have no justification. You have none. I mean, in that very case, there's no justification. You're doing it because you're asked to do it, and this is part of the job. It's not funny, but just do it. Try to do it so they don't see you and you don't bother them too much. But basically, you cannot justify nothing. You have to be ready in your mind. You know that sometimes, okay, this is what you're gonna have to do, and either you do it or you don't. But you don't try to find excuses. You know, I knew exactly what I was doing. You know, when I was doing it, I wasn't proud of myself, and I didn't like what I was doing, but it was part of my job.
Okay, let's talk about the night that Princess Diana died.
Yes.
So 31st of August, 1997. How did that day start for you?
The day before, a friend of mine tipped me off on that they were coming. I got the call. I got the number, the plate from the plane, but I couldn't do it because for some reason my motorcycle was not running, was down. So I was on foot, so I couldn't work. To be honest, I couldn't care less because what are you going to do? They'd been photographed. You had all these crazy shots that, you know, were published all summer long. Diana diving in a leopard swimsuit. I mean, in your wildest dream prior to that, you couldn't dream of a shot like that, yeah? And that was every day. The green swimsuit, the leopard swimsuit, the kiss. I mean, literally, the world press was flooded with the best images possible of Dodi and Diana that summer. So, okay, they're coming to Paris. What are they going to do? We knew that they wouldn't spend a long time. It was maybe a matter of a couple of days at, you know, max, which is usually how it works. People come here for meetings or they want to buy something of Hermes or blah, blah, you know, and they go. Because these people, they don't go shopping on the Champs-Élysées, these people, you know. So I wasn't really keen. And I knew they had arrived in Paris and I was not ready to work on the story. I was happy not to touch it. And then my boss, Mr. Sipa, called me up and said, well, Pierre, you should go. And I said, well, my motorcycle is broken down. And he said, no problem. I'll send you a motorcyclist. So I was assigned one guy, and Yarko, this guy, came to my house, picked me up. And I started up from there it was probably at lunchtime, and they had arrived early in the morning. Yeah. So I went to Ritz and I didn't see anybody, no photographers, no nothing. And I bumped into a fan autograph hunter that I knew. And he said, he told me where everybody was at Rue Arsène Houssaye of the Champs-Élysées at the apartment that they were staying at. They said, oh, all your friends are there. You know, they are probably there. You should go, which I did. And when I arrived, of course, all my friends were lined up at the bottom on the street, all the motorcycles, few cars, and the Diana people, the cars, the bodyguards. You know, everybody was downstairs outside waiting. It was very jovial. It was like middle of the afternoon. It was August 31st, so everybody was coming back from their holidays. So the thing is was like, oh yeah, and where did you go? What did you do? Did you have a good time? Blah blah. The weather was good. You would catch up with your friends. It's an easy story because they can't hide from 20 guys. You know, it's impossible. And plus, we had all the bikes and everything, so you basically cannot lose us. And it was an easy job. And we know that they wouldn't give us a hard time or hide or put umbrellas, or she wasn't the type to do that. So easy job, you know, you're with all your friends. The weather is good. It life is easy. Life is good. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
There's a bit of camaraderie, isn't it? Like, it sounds like you know everyone. You're all big
absolutely.
gang together.
Yeah. Of course, because already I had I was a bit more than 10 years in the business, and I knew it. Yeah, it was perfect. It was perfect. And then we saw that some action was going to happen. People were getting ready. The chauffeur gets into the cars. They start to move the cars. So, okay, so it's showtime. Okay, so let's get ready. You get ready. You do your settings on the camera. Blah blah. And they came out. They came out. We took photos. It lasted maybe 10, 15 seconds. Yeah, because they blocked the street. They put the car right in front of the doors. They get in the car. That's it. And then the convoy starts, because maybe then they had 2 or 3 cars and plus all the bikes, and a couple of photographers were with the car. So it was like a big line, big convoy of cars going through the city, but a very normal speed. They weren't trying to hide from nobody. And they drove all the way down to the Ritz hotel. So we would figure that out maybe like 200 yards before arriving to the Ritz. You would know that would be the most probable destination. So you would overtake the convoy, park the bikes, jump off the bike, get ready in line to have a good, nice, clean shot when they enter the hotel. But for some reason, the cars arrived in front of the hotel, and they stayed in the car forever, for maybe like 10, 15 minutes, and they wouldn't come out of the car. It was bizarre. I don't know why. So, and I remember after 10 minutes, I said, well, what the hell? I went up to the window of the car and I shot a photo through the window. But, and this is probably the shot that I saw the most in my career. I saw that photos 1,000 times. And I didn't realize, because back in the day we were shooting film, so you couldn't see what you shot on your little screen because there was none. And after developing the photo, Diana was picking up something on the floor and on only the back of her head, and Dodie was looking clearly at me. But for some reason, that photos went everywhere. I don't know why. It's bizarre. So I shot that photo, but not aggressively. I remember I walked very slowly to the window, blunk, shot a couple of photos, went back and waited again. And then when they entered the Ritz, that was probably 6, 7 o'clock maybe in the afternoon, and they didn't come back out until close to midnight. Yeah. So in between, first of all, so we gathered in front of the Ritz. And Paris is quite busy in the end of August. It's filled up with tourists, and what happened was what I call the pigeon phenomenon. You see photographers in front of the Ritz. So one tourist arrives and asks, "Who is famous? Who are you waiting for?" Then you turn your head, and all of a sudden there's 3 tourists, and then before you know it, there was 200 tourists. Waiting. Yeah, you're waiting for, because especially, like, you wouldn't tell them who was there, but of course, amongst the 20 or 25 guys that were here, one told them that it was Diana, and she was the most famous person in the world back in the day. So all the tourists got excited, and they love that, they love it. So now it was getting to like dinner time. So plans for dinner. Are they going to come out? Are they going to stay in? What are they going to do? And then we talked to that guy that came out from the hotel, and we talked to him for 15 minutes. And it happened to be Henri Paul, whom I didn't know at the time. I didn't know him. I had never saw him before. And he was very chatty, and he was very reassuring, telling us that, oh yeah, don't worry, guys, you will get your shot. You see, the car is here. It's not going to go away. It's going to be good. And I thought nothing to it, I went like, oh yeah, blah, blah. And then he went back to inside, and my friend told me, oh my God, do you know who that guy is? And I said, no, he's Henri Paul, he's the head of the security. And something's cooking, because that guy's job is not to talk to us, ever. So why did he do so? And probably what he told us, it's complete, bullshit. And what's going to happen is the exact opposite of what he said. So we start to speculate the paranoia, game. It's always the same. Oh yeah, so they are going to use the back door. Plus, it would make sense because there was a lot of people at the front. So I sent one of my friends, and he came back to say, well, it's nothing. And I didn't think much of it. And like I said, I wasn't really committed to that story 100%. So I said, well, leave it. They're going to come up through the front, and that's going to be no problem. But then I found out that close to midnight, that they had left through the back, and I was not covered.
You'd been sitting out the front waiting.
It was we made so many mistakes, which sort of saved us from all the chaos that happened afterwards. So I figured, oh, okay, well, they're gone now. So the only way to catch up is to follow that Range Rover, which was still sitting there at the front of the hotel, and which I did. So the Range Rover left, empty. You could clearly see it.
And your thinking was that the Range Rover was going to rendezvous with Diana wherever she was going. My
only lead to catch up was that car. So I had no options but to follow that car wherever it would go. So I did that, and I remember oddly it drove practically on the same road, but it didn't take the tunnel. We went above, and we didn't see what was going down into the tunnel. But when we drove on the Alma Square, I could clearly see a fireman car. It was a car. It was not a truck, with the lights and the blue lights on, coming towards the tunnel. I didn't think nothing, of it on the spot, but then I realized that it was going to the crash of the crash site, and we drove literally, just above it, and we took the Avenue Marceau up to Champs-Élysées and back to the flat, and back to the apartment. The guy parked and went inside, and then I could see that something was wrong, because they would come out and they would peek at the street, and they were looking at their watches all the time, like they were expecting them, and obviously they should have arrived already, but they hadn't. So something was wrong. You could feel in the body language of the people. So after a while, I decided, I knew that one of my friends was at the back, and he probably had followed them. And back in the day, we had the first cell phones, so we all had cell phones. They were the first one, the big ones. Yeah. And I decided to call my friend, and my friend picked up for like 2 seconds, and all I could hear was his crazy voice, like in a panic. He had this panic voice, and he said, "Oh my God, accident, Alma tunnel," and hanged up.
That was it. 3 words.
Yeah, but I understood straight away what had happened. And then I thought about that little fireman car and said, oh yeah, okay, that was probably an accident down there. So I went to the Al Fayed people, to the crew, I went up to them and I said, well, look, obviously something's wrong. You're waiting for the car. It's not here. There was an accident at the Halmat tunnel. I just had a photographer on the phone, and they didn't even let me finish my sentence, and they all ran into their cars.
So they didn't even know?
Yeah, they didn't know. Obviously, because nobody in the car could call them, right? Everybody was either dead or injured, so nobody could call them. So we arrived at the Alma Tunnel through the entrance of the tunnel. And I remember I had all my gear, all my cameras around my neck. And I ran down with the people. We arrived at the same time. So there was the Al-Fayed people, me, and we ran down into the tunnel. And I remember there was this cop guarding the entrance of the tunnel. So I could see already all the ambulances and then the blue lights and there was, two sides of the tunnel and all my friends lined up on the other side. And I went like, oh my God. Then the cop grabbed me and pushed me away from the tunnel outside. He said, well, you can't be here, get out. And it pushed me out. If he would have pushed me in, I would have been exactly like my friends.
You'd have been arrested.
Oh, yeah, of course. So he pushed me out, and I had a glimpse at the car, and I went, oh, my God, yeah, no good. Straight away, I could see, for like a split second, I saw the wreckage, and I went, oh, my God, this is not good at all.
Hey, we're just going to stop here for a quick ad break, but stick around. We'll be right back with more What It Was Like.
This season, Instacart has your back to school. As in, they've got your back to school lunch favorites like snack packs and fresh fruit. And they've got your back to school supplies like backpacks, binders, and pencils. And they've got your back when your kid casually tells you they have a huge school project due tomorrow. Let's face it, we were all that kid. So first, call your parents to say I'm sorry, and then download the Instacart app to get delivery in as fast as 30 minutes all school year long. Get a $0 delivery fee with your first 3 orders while supplies last. Minimum $10 an order. Additional terms apply.
Jewelry can say many things on your wedding day. As a wedding band, it can say, "This is a forever symbol of our forever love." As a gift to your wedding party, it can say, "Thanks for standing up there with us." Blue Nile can help you find the piece that says it all and says it beautifully, with expert guidance and a wide assortment of jewelry of the highest quality at the best price. Go to BlueNile.com and experience the convenience of shopping Blue Nile, the original online jeweler since 1999. That's BlueNile.com.
Millions of people have lost weight with personalized plans from Noom. Like Evan, who can't stand salads and still lost 50 pounds.
Salads generally for most people are the easy button, right? For me, that wasn't an option. I never really was a salad guy. That's just not who I am. But Noom worked for me.
Get your personalized plan today at Noom.com. Real Noom user compensated to provide their story. In 4 weeks, the typical Noom user can expect to lose 1 to 2 pounds per week. Individual results may vary.
This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. So every week, there's certain things that I've just got to do because they make everything else easier. Even if I'm flat out, I always try to put in an hour of therapy because I find that I get rewarded with just so many hours of clear, confident thinking. And it's just like clearing a hole through the mess, through all the clouds, and I can see what's important and what's not. So I think if this sounds good to you, try out BetterHelp. It's the easiest way to give therapy a shot because it's all online. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Never skip therapy day with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/whatitwaslike, and you'll get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/whatitwaslike. This is kind of an important moment. What did Princess Diana's car look like when you saw it?
Like a tin box that you would have squashed, right? And when you know it's a Mercedes, and it was a big, strong Mercedes, it's almost unimaginable in your head. You would go like, how is it possible to wreck such a car like that? My God, the impact must have been crazy hard. I mean, it really looked like a squashed, tin box.
Like twisted.
Yeah, completely, So, so I went, I realized instantly that it was a very serious car accident. I didn't let myself think too much, and I switched into news coverings mode instantly. I said, blink, now it's a new story, cover it, And I knew that the first minutes, the first moments are the most important, because as the story goes, the longer, the longer the story takes, the further away you're pushed back. So at first, you're always very close to the action. And after, I don't know, 15 minutes, this guy arrives and he's the boss of all the others. And he says, oh no, the journalists need to be a bit further away and further away. And you ended up seeing nothing. So I knew that. So I knew that right now, clink, 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 take photos of everything you can. Yeah. And by then, all the journalists, that were in town were arriving one by one. And all the TV crews from all around the world, all the correspondents, they were arriving, setting up their tripods. And I bumped into a few journalist friends of mine, and they were all saying the same thing. Basically, they were going like, oh my God, this is like huge. This is massive story. This is, I can't believe it. It was the biggest story ever for everybody. Yeah. So hearing it, made me realize that yes, indeed, it was a massive story, and we didn't know the outcome yet. We didn't know the state of the injuries, or we didn't know anything. But we knew that it was huge. And then my friend that was working with me arrived crying and with his face beat up. And I said, what happened? And it was my teammate. Okay, we were working for CIPA Press together. And he said, well, I went to take photos of that radar that was on a tripod on the edge of the road. And when the police saw me, they ran after me and they beat me up and they picked up all my films. They searched me, they picked up all my films and they threw me out. And I yelled at him because he had all the films from the whole day. So he was the one who had shot the good photos of Diana. He had all the good photos and they were gone, right? And I didn't think. The poor guy, he was crying, he got beat up. He had a face like that, and I yelled at him on top of everything else. I went, oh, what the hell did you do? Why did you give the film? You're an idiot, blah, blah. And I said, well, okay, you're not in a state to work no more anyways. So pick my films, go to the agency, give them to the lab, and tell them I'll come later when I'm finished. And you should leave. You're useless now. Go get your head fixed and go to the agency and do that, which he did. And then the wreckage of the car came up, and it took for a good 5-10 minutes maybe for the car to come up, and we shot the photos from above, and it was really. We were maybe 10 yards away. We could see really clearly. Took photos with a flash, and it was even more impressive because you could see it and analyze and go like, this is the kind of moment where your brains, go like, oh my God, I thought this would not be possible to wreck a Mercedes-Benz like that, and yes, it was possible because the proof was here.
It's a morbid question, but was there any blood on the car?
On the airbag, but there was blood. I saw it on many photos afterwards, but I don't know if we saw it straight away. But it's just the state of the car was amazing, unbelievable. The drama was like came up one notch, boom. because of that site. Yeah. Because then you realize the impact of the violence of the crash. Plus, we knew I would drive into this tunnel every day. Yeah. So I knew exactly, and I said, how is it possible to the speed of the car must have been insane in order to wreck that car like that. So yeah, so that was one thing, and then there was another thing. This police van with clear windows came up from the other side of the tunnel with all my friends in it, all the photographers, and so I took photos of that. And that also was a bit of a shock to me because I was like, oh my God, these guys, they're in trouble. Serious.
So they'd all been rounded up and arrested. Is that right?
Yes. They've been put on the by the wall of the tunnel on the other side of the crash site. Probably they were not interrogated straight away, but then they were put in that van, and that van drove up to the prefecture of the police. And I saw all my friends in the car, in that van, and all the TVs filmed them. And I was like, oh my God, this is not good. This is not good at all. These guys are going to be in trouble. And which happened to be the case afterwards. So I took photos of that. And then we were wondering, why the ambulance is still here? What's the problem? There must be a problem. So, okay, we knew that we had a different protocol than the rest of the world, America, or I don't know in Australia how it works. But in France, we stabilized the wounded person. We tried to stabilize, and then we take the person to the hospital. Where in America, you rush the person to the hospital no matter what, and then you handle the person at the hospital. In France, you handle the person on site. Okay, so it was normal that it would take a bit of time, but not that long. I mean, it was like already 3 hours after the accident or something. And then at last, one ambulance left. It was on the bank of the river, on the road, which is virtually on the bank of the river. It's like a mini freeway. It was clear, completely clear. The ambulance could have gone like any speed it likes. And we drove behind the ambulance to find out where they were taking the wounded, which hospital. And you could literally walk by the ambulance. It was driving at walking pace, walking speed. And again, I was with another colleague next to me. He was in a car or motorcycle, I don't remember. And we went like, oh my God, whoever's inside, we didn't know who was in the ambulance. It must be in a super crazy bad state because it's driving so slowly. This is not good. We later found out that it wasn't Diana that was in the ambulance, but we had no way of knowing. So we followed the car, and it went at the Pont d'Austerlitz, it went up, and at the Jardin des Plantes, it stopped for 10, 15 minutes almost. And you could see the entrance of La Salpêtrière from there. La Salpêtrière entrance was like 200 yards away, and you could see it. And the ambulance stopped for 10 or 15 minutes. I remember somebody who was sitting at the passenger side, jumped, the door opened. We didn't have time to take photos. And we later found out that it was Diana, and she most probably died there,
As in she was already dead when she arrived?
We assume that she was, yeah. And I decided to I'm not sure I carried on. I decided to call it a day. We drove back to the agency, and I remember it was very bizarre. The guy who was in charge of sales in the agency, who had woken up and came to the office, screamed at me, yelled at me when I arrived. Like, what the hell? Didn't you follow the car? No, from the back, blah, 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 blah. And he started to yell at me, and why did this one got his film taken? And he was screaming at me, yelling at me because we didn't have enough photos. And I didn't know what to say. And then the boss arrived, Mr. Sipa, he came down the stairs and he went up to that guy and said, well, shut up, leave him alone. It's, maybe he made a mistake, but it's for the better. Because you know what? All the guys that didn't make the mistakes, that got all the photos, they will never see their photos printed, which he was right. They will get all their photos confiscated. They will never be given back their photos. And they will be in big, big, big trouble from now on. So he came to me like that in a protective way. And he told the guy to go beep, beep himself. And he said, well, maybe you made a mistake, but it's for the best because your friends, they are in trouble. And most of them are going to be scarred for life. And he was so right. Yeah, he was so right in the end.
What was the exact moment that you found out that the princess had died?
Like everybody else, I put the radio on and, I followed up. And I don't know when the general public, when it was official, it was probably in the morning, I would think.
Do you recall your response?
Well, tragedy. I mean, I was devastated. I was like, oh my God, not. I couldn't believe it. At first, I thought about our children, and I went like, oh, this is horrible. Or poor kids. That's my first thought was to our children. And then I was stunned because why her? I mean, she was the best of the best. She was the most famous woman in the world to begin with. She was very beautiful. She was a good person. She used us as a weapons. We were a weapon to fight. The other side, the other camp, the farm. Yeah. And she was excellent at it. She was the best. Yeah. I think maybe it was during that summer. Yeah. It was Prince Charles' birthday party. And she made sure she wore maybe that leopard swimsuit that day. Guess what the papers printed. So yeah.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
And she was playing with that. And it was, she was very good because she knew a few photographers personally, and so she knew exactly how the game worked, and she was using it to perfection. So yeah, it was a horrible loss, and then came the other dimension of the story, which was. We are going to be so blamed for that because we are the perfect suspects. We tick all the boxes, and guess what? That's exactly what happened. Because on top of that, the French situation is very peculiar because the two 8 o'clock news anchor. Which were like superstars, there wasn't so many channels back in 97. So on Channel 1, the two 8 o'clock news anchors were this guy, Patrick Poivre d'Arvor, and Claire Chazal on the weekend, and they were lovers, the two of them. And they were targets of paparazzi all year long. And they were on the cover of the tabloids, them two, all year long. So they had a big encounter with a photographer when they were on holiday and there was a trial going on. Basically, they hated us. They wanted to kill us. And to them too, it was a gift from heaven, this story. So they could at least get their revenge on us. And that's exactly what they did. And most of the people were watching their, 8 o'clock news on Channel 1. And every night, the paparazzi, the blood-hungry paparazzi, the merciless paparazzis, the hyenas, everything called oh my God. And they got their vengeance super well. So like we said, they said it on TV, so it must be true. All right? So people would believe that. So in the end, even to this day, most people think that we are responsible for what happened, which is absolutely not the case. Not 1 second, So yeah, After all the inquest and look at how we've been portrayed in The Crown.
Yes.
The coverage of The Crown from that night, I was there. I couldn't believe it. I was there. I took photos of while they were filming, in the tunnel and everything. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, what the hell are they doing? It suits them well. We are the perfect. It's like if it's abnormal that we are not responsible. It's not normal. So we should be responsible, then therefore we are. And the Crown doesn't help, because again, people are going to watch that and say, "Oh yeah, look, see, how this guy behaves themselves." It's horrible what they did. It's absolutely. I was so furious.
Yeah. Do you have any friends who quit the business or whose mental health suffered?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I have a friend, Romuald Ra. His last name was a rat. I mean, can you imagine? And in between us, that we are nicknamed the Rats. Yeah, but it's a nice nickname, like the rats, like in Ratatouille. Yeah.
Yeah, the Rat Pack.
And these two, and these two anchors that I was talking to you about, they use that on the 8 o'clock news. Oh yeah, and look at them. They call themselves rats. But of course, they portray that in a very negative way, where this is more like Ratatouille affectionate. Anyways, Romuald found out one morning that his parents' house, which was outside of Paris, north of Paris, had been tagged with red paint, killer or something. His parents' house, yeah. And he was kind of, and although he was a big giant guy, but he was a sweet giant, he was quite emotional, that guy. And he really took it hard. I mean, he gave up the job. But for the better, because he became a cameraman, and then now he has a very important position in a national TV station. So for him it was for the better. For others, they are still haunted to this day by the story. They have nightmares, and some ended up seeing a shrink for the rest of their lives.
Did they see the crash? I mean, was that the traumatic part for them?
No. Nobody saw the crash. That's the key thing. That's the point. Henri Paul ran through the red light, at La Place de la Concorde, and they decided to not to go through the red light. It was super easy. They wouldn't have gone into any kind of problem doing so, but they didn't do it because it wasn't worth it, and he sped off on the Cour Albert Ier, which is a big straight line. And they waited for the green light, and they drove. And since the tunnel is a bit after the little slope that goes downhill from the surface of the road, you can't see. So they didn't even see it. They arrived maybe a minute after, or maybe less than a minute after, but they didn't see it.
That have heard it. It would have made a hell of a noise.
Absolutely, yes, that for sure. But so they did not see the crash, but they arrived seconds after, or a minute after. So that was the most traumatic thing. And from what I understand, they couldn't believe it. I mean, I can only imagine, but it's the worst, thing you can possibly see. Plus, you took photos of that person a few minutes before, and being who she is, who they are, these people. For sure, it was very traumatic to do. And they didn't know what to do because it was the middle of the night. So they decided that Romuald, who had taken a course and he had a diploma in first aid, was, if someone was able to go and check the pulse, it was him, because he was able to, which he did. And he checked the pulse of Diana, and no pulse. So he didn't feel, any pulse. He went like, "Ooh, this is not good." But that's all they did. And then they called the ambulance, and then I think a doctor who was driving by arrived at first and took charge. A lot of them are to this day traumatized. You could say that, yes.
So, I mean, I think it's interesting then that a lot of them are traumatized, and yet you and I are talking about this right now. Why do you feel like you were less affected?
Because I wasn't part on that last leg,
Yeah, you weren't arrested.
So I wasn't arrested. I've been questioned. I was asked to come to the police station a couple of times. I've been I've been on the lineup as well, but I knew I'd done nothing. So I knew I was, completely out of the danger zone, if you like. But so yeah, that's why it didn't traumatize me that much, and I didn't see the people in the car. All of them saw it very clearly. That's probably one of the most haunting sights you could ever see. Yeah. So, and I didn't see that.
So would you argue that the business killed Diana? I know that you say that the paparazzi didn't, but the business as a whole.
No, I wouldn't say that. Because it could have been so much better. Let's imagine for 1 minute that this unfortunate accident never happened. She probably would have set new boundaries for charity. I think she would have done great things. Yeah, this is where possibly celebrities could use their fame for the better. Yeah, where today a lot of people, most of them, most followed Instagram account, when we are talking like 300 millions, like more than most countries, sometimes it goes to themselves, so they occasionally give money to charity, but not a lot. But she wasn't like that. She was in the best position to do something great. I mean, with the celebrity, and she would have set a good example, I would think. She was on a good way, on a good path to do that.
Well, rest in peace, Princess Diana.
Absolutely.
Yeah. This has been a fascinating conversation, and I just want to say thanks. Thanks so much for telling us your story.
Thank you, and good luck to the podcast. I heard a few episodes, and I'm gonna keep listening. Now I'm happy that you reached out, and long live to your podcast and your career.
Thank you very much. Please leave us a 5-star review on Apple and Spotify. And we'd love it. We would truly love it if you'd follow the show. And go and check us out on TikTok. We are at What It Was Like Podcast. That's @ What It Was Like Podcast. And we've got the same handle on YouTube. Today's episode was produced by Rachel Tuffery. It was mixed by Jimmy Saunders, who also did our theme music. Darcy Humphreys is our intern. Our cover art is by Naomi Lee Beveridge. And this whole thing has been a Super Real production.
We all have dreams. Dream home renovations, dream vacations, or sending our kids to their dream colleges. But finding straightforward ways to turn those dreams into realistic goals, that's where things get tricky. Merrill understands that. That's why, with a dedicated Merrill advisor, you get a personalized plan and a clear path forward. And having the bull at your back helps your whole financial life move with you. So when your plans change, Merrill is with you every step of the way. Go to ml.com/bullish to learn more. Merrill, a Bank of America company. What would you like the power to do? Investing involves risk. Merrill Lynch, Pierce, Fenner & Smith Incorporated, registered broker-dealer, registered investment advisor, member SIPC.
Need new glasses or want a fresh new style? Warby Parker has you covered. Glasses start at just $95, including anti-reflective, scratch-resistant prescription lenses that block 100% of UV rays. Every frame's designed in-house with a huge selection of styles for every face shape. And with Warby Parker's free home try-on program, you can order 5 pairs to try at home for free. Shipping is free both ways, too. Go to warbyparker.com/covered to try 5 pairs of frames at home for free. warbyparker.com/covered.